I wanted to kind of just highlight some dirty liars. Just people that I think that let other people spend their fab on and redraft in Dynasty their owned. But one is Alec Pierce in that game where it feels like, oh, is this a thing? But then you have to go back and look at like, and I wouldn't be surprised if he has maybe just one more game like this the entire year.
Yeah.
Welcome into another episode of Live Good, Die Nasty. And this is our first episode that we've done during the regular season. This is our first year, first week, and there's a lot to unpack. I think we're going to be kind of bouncing during the season between Dynasty and redraft, since we all do both. But I'm Arlen. This is Nate, and you're back with us. Live Good, Die Nasty. What's up, Nate?
What's up? How's it going? Yeah, super exciting. Crazy weekend. A lot of crazy stuff happened. A lot of stuff didn't happen. I might even say that a lot of things didn't happen. Maybe more things didn't happen than did happen expected, but we can chat through that here in a bit. But a lot of surprises, a lot of I told you so's happening along the way. Take a second to tell you about something I got to do over the weekend. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
I want to talk about this.
This was nuts. So big 4-0 this year. So my family decided to give me a really cool gift. A studio tour of SoFi. These tours like the day before game day, all for the games. So it's like all decked out in Chargers gear because at SoFi they go back and forth between Chargers and Rams for Chargers because they had their home opener this weekend. And we get there and there are these group tours, usually like 30 or 40 people involved, and they've got multiple time slots throughout the day. But for whatever reason, our slot, the 2:30 slot when we showed up, we were the only people. It was just my family. The tour before us had like 15 to 20 people. The tour after us had 15 to 20 people. Wow. But it was just us.
Yeah, it looked very exclusive. I was hoping you'd kind of started out with like, I got invited to a lot of you sent a couple of videos of you throwing a pass with your kids in the end zone itself. Like, and I was wondering, I'm like, this looks very exclusive.
Yeah, it was nuts. So we got to go down. They give you this whole tour about how crazy SoFi is, and you can nerd out just about the stadium logistics of it. They had to dig 100 hole into the ground. It's a subterranean because it's so close to LAX. They had to make the stadium lower so that planes wouldn't fly into it.
Interesting.
So it's like dug into the ground. So it's crazy. So you can nerd out about that stuff.
That's a good call.
But a part of the actual tour is you get to go on the field. And, they set you up on the sideline and they have like passing machines set up and like areas where you can throw the ball into targets and whatnot. It was just us. They give you like half an hour to 45 minutes on the field to do whatever you want because they anticipate there being 30 people there. We were able to just like throw passes down the sideline and run 40s. And it's like right there. And it was a crazy, like fundamental memory that my kid, like a core memory that my kids are going to have, that we were able to like play on Chargers field in this nutty situation. Like, and I'm sure I'll pop a video in on here at some point where you can see it.
Yeah.
Like, I literally got to throw touchdown passes to my son on Chargers field. He went into the end zone and like
That's
literally
so cool.
grittied because he just had watched a bunch of Justin Jefferson over the offseason. So I grittied in the Chargers end zone, and I was like, dude, this is like so nuts that you get to tell your friends this like one day.
That's unreal.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool, pretty awesome experience that we got to be out there. Hey, I don't know if you noticed this, but Tyrod Taylor's out there throwing passes. We're watching Monday Night Football. This is on Monday night.
Is it over? Did they rest their starters?
So they've rested their starters. So I don't.
Not before Garrett Wilson caught that last pass to make me lose. Of course.
So into the Dynasty conversation we've been watching this weekend as we do a Week 1 recap here. Arlen has gone into Monday night with only Garrett Wilson against him and only had like 12 points that he had to lose. And it looks like we're losing by less than a point. How much are we losing by today, sir?
I'm losing by a point. Just about a point. And this is one of those ones where I'm going to look, but I'm pretty sure this is one of those ones where like I lost to, I'm the second highest scorer in the league. Oh, no, I'm the third. Somebody did go off and get a new top 10 record. Shay. But yeah, I'm one of the top ones. I'm the third highest scorer this week and lost to the second highest scorer this week. I hate those ones, which is why I like the median system.
I was going to ask you to talk
we
about
put
that.
this into the dynasty league, and if you're not familiar with it, the median system is where you're going against like basically 2 games a week, but that sounds overwhelming. You're really only paying attention to one, but you're looking at the score of the median, which is so the average between 6 and 5 and their score. So you want to be the top half of the scoring for the league, and you get an extra win or a loss if you're below that line, which gives you, I don't think it takes away from your matchup at all, which is I think what my fear was when we were talking about it at first. But what it does is it gives you care about other people's matchups way more, and when you know you're going to lose, you still somebody in the league said, I'm just gonna sit these players or whatever, or throw these other players up as protest because they're getting slammed so hard after Thursday and Friday night football. But then they said, oh wait, I still need to beat the median, so I'm gonna still play a full roster and came pretty close to winning in the end. So it gives you a little bit more to pay attention to. I think it's really good for the league. But at the end of the year, the biggest thing is that one epic year that in our work league where I was the second highest scorer and I didn't make playoffs.
Yep.
Like, it was insane. For the first 10 weeks, I didn't win any games, even though I was the second highest scorer every week. And it eliminates that because those people, it's usually the top scorers are the same people that are in the playoffs. Right. So it really kind of makes it a little bit more, it takes those anomalies out, those cases out of there.
Yeah. I'm on the opposite side of the spectrum in our Dynasty League this week, where I featured the bottom 2 of the bottom 3 scores in the league, and one person is going to come away with a win. Unfortunately, it's not me. I had the painful distinction of having multiple wide receivers go down in game. Tough game, and we'll talk about those injuries here in a bit, I'm sure. So, yeah, rough week for Champ this week, but yeah, it was tough to watch. But let's get into this thing.
Yeah, well, why don't we hear about it? Why don't you start with your Dynasty's team and how you're feeling, then we can kind of go, because I think it's actually the first topic we have is injuries.
Yep.
And I think that's where we're at.
Yeah, so it was a rough one, right? So going into this, how do you treat it, and especially in Dynasty, what do you do at this point? Puka Nacua, Rome Odunze, and Jordan Addison all in my squad, down relatively early in their games. Kua, unfortunately, today we find that he's out on IR, so he's going to be out for at least a little while. They originally designated him week to week. I've got probably like my all-star, probably one of the saving graces I still had on my team from the previous year, going to be out for a while this year. Addison out with an ankle injury. He had a similar ankle injury earlier in training camp, was able to recover pretty quickly. They're hopeful to have him in week 2, so hopefully that won't be too bad. And I think we're still waiting MRI results for Rome Odunze, who also had a knee injury. So 3 in one weekend, go at it. Plus I had, the rest of my positions had iffy Justin Herbert, which is what we kind of expected under the new year. And then I had Mark Andrews, who got me less than 3 points and was not the tight end of feature of the Baltimore Ravens. So just a rough week overall for my Dynasty team.
It turns out that Odunze has a grade 1 MCL sprain, cool. And he's week to week.
Yeah.
He's
in the past. Pain, dollar, and tissue, they need to let that recover a little bit. So probably going to see multi-week out from Odunze without knowing much about it. But
to be fair, as looking, you might have had some weeks without anything anyways, while Caleb Williams amps up. He had a pretty rough time. What was the passing yards? I think it was like 60 or something. It was 80 maybe.
It was 48. An interesting weekend.
That can't be right. No, 93.
Yeah, 93 passing yards, 99 attempts. So he was throwing the ball, but only completed 14 of them. So right around 50% completion percentage on his first outing. So yeah.
If you're a Caleb Williams owner in Dynasty, so in redraft, I would probably just move on and stream if you need to. I don't think there's any problem with that. But when we're talking Dynasty and you invested so much in What are you doing right now? I know you're not just bailing right away. It's a rookie quarterback, but like, what's your panic meter at?
It's not that high considering all of these guys, or a lot of these guys, have really rough starts to their careers. Peyton Manning is historically had like a horrific rookie season and then grew into who Peyton Manning was. So so early to make any sort of move in Dynasty. I would be nervous if you, depending on your Dynasty lineup, maybe if I've got a better option or someone that like surprised everyone this week on my bench, I'm not going to fault you if you start him ahead of Caleb Williams next week. Caleb Williams grows into himself, and if you feel like he needs to prove it a little bit, he is up against Houston next week. Scare you at Indianapolis, so he's got a kind of rough go at it because he's got the Rams in a few weeks. So if you start someone ahead of him, I wouldn't be mad at you about it. But my panic meter is nowhere near where it could. What were you expecting out of You're expecting the pendulum to swing with rookie quarterbacks like this. That's what you're signing up for if you're starting them in week 1.
Yeah, they looked way worse than I thought they would. I mean, it's the rushing thing. If you don't have the rushing, like Jaden Daniels is the number 3 quarterback on the week, and that's because he's got the rushing. He had yards throwing too, but he still is like, he's got that safe baseline where you feel just like way more okay with throwing him out there. Caleb Williams might have that longevity, but I would be benching Caleb Williams until further notice, until like I get a couple games of proving it. But I was kind of already there either way to start as a rookie. I think that he has a great opportunity, could be something, but I would probably bench a non-rushing quarterback until they prove that they can start. But speaking of quarterbacks, one of the ones that I kind of wanted to throw out there was, I mean, it was just hilarious and exactly what we thought Anthony Richardson was. He had nine completions, and he is the 4th fantasy quarterback on the week, and 27, depending on format, 27 points. There's a couple leagues that he was over 30, and that
you can't. I mean, 9 completions doesn't even tell the full story. On 19 throws, he's under 50% completion.
He's not good at that.
But you're going to get that, and it's what we all expected. But that throw to Alec Pierce, if you watch the highlight, if you go back and watch it, that thing was on it was crazy. It was insane.
And he wasn't getting hit, like leaning back.
Yeah, it was what his arm is capable of doing, and maybe it was a wing and a prayer, and it just the football gods were just lining it up for just to fall right into screen, right into Alec Pierce's hands, and it's just one of those throws. But I heard a stat earlier. I think Stefania Bell talked about it on a podcast earlier. But when a throw was like the 3rd longest time completion, and the other 2 ahead of it were both Hail Marys. So like that wasn't a Hail Mary throw. It was a purposeful, intentional throw to the receiver he wanted, and beautiful. So he's got the skill set to do things like that, but
he's incredible. Well, it's his accuracy. He's not accurate. I mean, every quarterback in the NFL can wow you at times, but he's got to be, if he can get consistency with his accuracy, like he's already got such a great baseline, and then like pull a Josh Allen and really figure that piece out and hit that next level, then yeah, I mean, this guy already, as it stands, without any accuracy improvement, can break fantasy. But how long is he going to be able to do that for depends on if he can figure out accuracy or not, and that other part of his game. But it was cool. It was nice to like add another top quarterback to the mix, and somebody else that you can kind of watch for a few years and see how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But speaking of that game, though, just real quick, because I wanted to kind of just highlight some dirty liars, just people that I think that let other people spend their fab on and redraft in Dynasty their owned. But one is Alec Pierce in that game, where it feels like, oh, is this a thing? But then you have to go back and look at like, and I wouldn't be surprised if he has maybe just one more game like this the entire year. But 3 receptions, 3 targets, and he had 125 yards. And did he had 1 touchdown?
1 touchdown, yeah.
I think. So yeah, that's just, I mean, an average of like what, 57 or so, something like that. What was the average of his like completions? 41.
41 yards. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen super often. We just talked about the volatility of Anthony Richardson, the guy throwing to him. And so, yeah, will he get a couple of bombs this year? Probably. You still got Michael Pittman out there. I think Adonai Mitchell's going to be a thing. Plus, Josh Downs is out or was out for this game. So there's other wide receivers that naturally either are ahead of him or are cut ahead of him here eventually. Really nice to watch. Selfishly, he's on my bench in Dynasty, and I just told you about all the injuries I have, so I hope we're both wrong and he's a thing.
Yeah, sure.
Because I'm not going to have to go spend fab or off waivers. He's already sitting there on my bench.
Yeah.
But no, realistically, I think he is one of our, in your terms, dirty liar performances.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see some of the other ones here. Like one, I think on quarterback position. And dirty liars are so great when it's week 1.
Yeah.
Because if you can trade in any format, if you have the player and you can trade away and get something for them, you don't have the historical for this season. It could just be whatever story someone believes. If someone believes that Alec Pierce is that thing now, then they can't say, well, he didn't do it last week, since there is none. So this is a great time to kind of just recency bias, anchor bias. It's all mixed. Rid of them, and I would for Alec Pierce for sure. The other one I'll actually go for another wide receiver, because this one I feel like you can actually cash out on. Alec Pierce, I think people kind of are a little bit more hip to that. But Diggs is, first I was like, I texted you like, I think, is Diggs, was I wrong on Diggs? Like, I did not believe in him, and holy crap, then I looked at this, like, I actually like looked at the stats, and I was watching it on Red Zone, so I didn't like dedicate the time for that game. And he didn't do that great. He had that, and he is still going to be a red zone threat. So I'm not saying that this is not a fantasy viable player, but I don't think it was as aggressive. 33 yards on 6 receptions. I don't think that he's going to be that big of a thing. Yeah. I think he was the third target, really. He just happened to have 2 of his 6 be touchdowns.
Yeah, I think when you look at this, we have to just remember that like not all receptions are created equal, because I think you said he had 6 receptions. Did Nico Collins?
I thought it was even less, but yeah, he did.
Yeah, so Nico, they had the same amount of receptions, but Collins goes for over 100 yards and just didn't happen to get a touchdown, right? So possession's going to count a point, depending on your league. It's a half point or a point, whatever it may be. But those 2 touchdowns for him, so when they're in close, is Diggs the guy that Stroud's looking for? Is he the possession receiver running the routes that he's going to be looking for? And so is he more apt to get touchdowns when they're in the red zone? You're kind of dependent on Nico Collins to get those long bomb touchdowns. So it's really going to break down in the view. So it's interesting to see how it's going to shake out over the next couple of weeks. But I think you're right. I think there is going to be a calculated risk if you're trying to buy him right now. But if you're selling on him, I think you have to your point, a much better chance to sell him than you do, say, Alec Pierce for sure.
And maybe he earns, like, I mean, he caught 6 for 6. They were shorter throws, 6 receptions, 33 yards. But both of the other, Tank and Nico, had more targets. They're just different kind of targets that are a little further down. So I think there was a lot shorter, like in those moments where he has great hands still. But I think long term he's number 3, and the targets at least say that it's almost even split, but the others leaning towards the others, and then they're just not as valuable except for obviously red zone. So I'm interested to see. I feel like if there's a team that I can imagine not getting to the red zone but scoring a lot of touchdowns, it's Houston. So if we're talking about red zone targets, I feel the people catching and making plays in there, and Mixon, oh my God.
I was going to say, can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah. Let's pause and talk about the I don't think he's a dirty liar. I think this is real.
Yeah, this is legit.
Yeah.
It's a couple of things, right? It's scary how many attempts that he had. Like if anyone had on their bingo card or whatever, like Mixon has 30 attempts out of the backfield, be utterly surprised. The dude had 30 attempts out of the backfield, 159 yards, got a touchdown, still had 3 receptions for 19 yards, 27 points in our formatting. Guy in our league that has him is so stacked at running back, he could probably trade off some assets and come away pretty strong. He's got so many running backs. He's got Gibbs, he's got Montgomery, he's got Mixon.
He's tried to move him to me a lot.
Yeah.
But he's been wanting like Barkley.
That's his problem. If he's going RB for RB, he's got a problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mixon is, he's never had consistency. That's what made Mixon. Always going to get the ball, just pounding the rock. Now he's got the right pieces around him to be successful at that. And it's not just his efficiency is going to go way up. I think crazy here. That average over 5 a carry at that volume is insane.
Yeah. I think it's real. I don't know how old is he. Is he like 28? That's what's in my head, but that might be a total fabrication.
Nope, you're right on. He's 28 years old, so he's right to beat. But
yeah, which I think he's one of those that you get a couple, like 1 or 2 extra years, but it's an injury concern at that volume. Yeah. How long can he actually withstand that? And also with older running backs, it's important to note that the beginning of the year are usually stronger, and after a little bit of that beatdown, it just takes these old men at 28. It takes a little bit off of them, and they start slowing down a little bit towards the end. For our last dirty liar, unless you have a couple you want to throw in, Carr. This is one that I think that you're not going to be able to move or take action on, but I wouldn't expect Carr to repeat that type of performance often. If he does, I damn well hope it's to Olave. But I think Carr has had a great performance, but I think that's against the Carolina Panthers, and that's all that is.
I mean, I think I'd have to. I didn't check this yet, but I'd have to look at roster percentages. When you're talking about Carr,
7. Not in Dynasty, though.
So you said 7% in redraft leagues? Roster percentage?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think you're likely, if you had, say, go down, or I think Josh Allen's going to be fine to play next week. You just wanted, if you were looking at the waiver wire for a quarterback in redraft, I think Derek Carr is going to be there for you.
I have one league that I waited until the 15th round to draft a quarterback. Okay. It's just I kept getting sniped right before and pushing it, and I started Justin Fields, and I will do it again. Carr is, I will, but he's one of the ones that it's like everybody else. If everybody else is injured and taken, but I think there's like an average of like 48 or so starting quarterbacks every year. And so there's 47 other quarterbacks that I'd rather start this season. I would almost go Daniel Jones before Carr, but that's more me being mad that I'm an Olave owner. I'm not serious.
I was like,
I'm just so salty.
We're gonna have a different conversation. Yeah, because Justin Fields makes sense because you're always going to take the guy that has the threat of the run over running quarterback. I think it's just in my. But would you say like Derek Carr, if you had your choices were Derek Carr or Kirk Cousins next weekend?
Kirk Cousins.
Derek Carr or Trevor Lawrence?
I don't even know yet who.
Trevor Lawrence,
probably.
Carr. So yeah.
Geno Smith I would do above Derek Carr. I have to look at the matchups for next week. I don't know all of the matchups right now, but in general, I think I just prefer those ones above. I think Derek Carr is going to just go right back to Derek Carr. There was a bet I made with somebody last week that I thought was just insane that they would. I don't know if you remember this. I made it with Eli about that Derek Carr would have a higher fantasy point per game than Andy Dalton, who played last year. And I lost the bet. And I cannot believe it. Absolutely insane to me. Like, he's so much worse than I thought he was. But then he'll have these spurts once in a while. Yep. But it's because he's a dirty liar.
Yeah. And to your point, I mean, he's playing Dallas next week.
That's who it is, right?
So,
I'd play anyone.
What's that?
I'd play anyone else.
Yeah, he's playing. Yeah.
Speaking of crappy quarterbacks, so is it like I'm going to give it one more week, but I have not been defending Watson as a person. He's the worst. But I've been like, well, there's no way somebody could just be that good and then stop being that good and be this bad. It can't be real. There's got to be reasons, and I made excuses. And I am full disclosure, I'm a Browns fan, but I'm a Browns fan who knows that we suck. And he might be just really that bad. I'm going to give it one more week, but I'm like not going the whole season making excuses. Like, do it or don't, but I think he's that bad.
Yeah, I wasn't watching this game with a fine-tooth comb, and to be honest, there wasn't a ton to watch from the Cleveland offensive side for red zone to pick up on. I was going through it. It's on the Dallas side.
They didn't show up a lot on the red zone, though.
And then, in fairness, I do have a hard time watching y'all games. Oh, shoot, man. But the dude went 24 for 45 for 169 yards. I can't even say it and make it sound great, but...
So I watched it pretty, closely, obviously, and there was, one drive, a couple throws where I was like, oh, here he is. He's popping off now. And then, I was like, maybe the second half. And then he went right back to just bad. Just not knowing what to do, looking confused the whole time, just looking overpaid the entire time.
Looking like he's guaranteed to be overpaid.
Although, I don't know if you saw the text come through of, was it Florio or maybe somebody had messaged or had posted that details of his contract, specifically that he had to tell us everything in advance. Let's see, who was it that? Well, now I have to look at it later. I can't find where that was, but he had to tell us everything that he possibly could be charged with, or something like that. There was some weird thing in his contract, or we can the 40-second clause or something. We can just void. And something popped up from that same time, and another thing, and now I'm like, should we just say goodbye? But at the same point, do we know for sure the answer yet after spending this much money? I think we do.
Injuries last year. He had one? Did he have one great game or one decent game last year before he got injured? Never really got to see it. But anyway, I think football is so much more fun to watch, especially in fantasy when Jameis Winston is a starter. I am here for it, man. I'm here for the YOLO passes and whatever needs to happen.
I was listening to some podcast, and they were talking about, I wish I could remember the exact stat, but it was some stat with either all-time passing yards or I think it was all-time passing yards or attempts or something like that in a game or season. I don't know what it was, something like that. But it was the point is a list of the quarterbacks were Peyton Manning, Moreno, they had all these Tom Brady, they had all these studs, and the only one that top 10 in one of these things is not like the other. Jameis Winston sitting there. Nearly lost it. Because he'll have they don't have the full interception ratio in there, but he always has to pass because he throws it anywhere he wants, and then you get the ball right back because they intercepted and scored a pick six, and you get to throw it all again, and that's why his stats are so high. It's so good.
Looking up how many games did he get to play last year? What team was Winston on last year?
New Orleans.
Yeah, he played in 4 games last year, but all of them with an insane amount. Oh no, maybe not. I think he came in late in most games. But anyway, he's fun to watch. He's fun to have in the league. One of my favorite years was going back and forth with Ryan Tannehill as the starter. What's the bigger risk? Yeah. Jameis Winston YOLO in all day, or it's magic?
Those are two of my some of my favorites. They're just Fitzmagic and Winston. They're great. One of my favorites that was not good for fantasy is Jay Cutler. He was the worst.
I hated that guy so much.
I feel like that's might be who I was if I was an NFL player and like, oh, you already paid me. I'm the highest. Well, and it's guaranteed. Cool. Sounds like I'm not trying.
Yeah. I'm gonna go do a couple episodes of what's that show he was on?
A couple like quick. What's your quick takes? 15 seconds or less, and then I think we should do another quick power episode of just rookies,
Okay.
and just talk rookies real quick for Dynasty. But we're gonna look at one wide receiver, and then I'm gonna look at a few running backs. So Jordan Love is out for a bit. They manufacture touches for Reed though, so he might be the safest one in there. But what are your thoughts on Reed? Is it real? Is he the guy?
It was pretty clear in that game that they are going to get the ball into his hands, right? Like from the running touchdown, from the way that they were setting up for passes, receptions for that guy. Been Jordan Love the rest of the way, or for he locks in as a wide receiver 2 at least. Still would have him as a flex consideration as we're playing through the rest of the year, however long Love's going to be out. There are a lot of mouths to feed over there, so I mean, there may be some risk with that, but I think he is the guy. And again, that's all off of week 1, and we'll call it a week 1 overreaction, but I think it's safe to play him for sure.
He just also he passed the eye test, like he looked electric. Here's one that's a possible dirty liar. What are your thoughts on Dobbins? He was great, but he also had a 60-yard run and a 40-yard run.
Yeah.
And how often is that happening?
They didn't break off till the end. Say like the Raiders defensive line looked really clean, looked really good, and they were having a tough time. But Harbaugh is going to go with the hot hand. And for this particular game, Dobbins seemed like he was hitting the gaps a little bit faster. He's finding the openings a little bit faster. But Gus Edwards isn't going anywhere, right? I don't think it's going to naturally be Dobbins.
So are you not dropping Gus in redraft?
I'm not dropping Gus. I'd wait and see. If you drafted him, you spent for him a little bit, so I think I'd wait. If you drafted Dobbins, you probably feel like you got the steal of the draft right now, because he was going 2 to 3 rounds after Gus. He just looked like the more electric player, but how that backfield's going to work, I think they're going to go back and forth between hot games. It's not going to support 2 running backs in any one given game, but you never know who that one running back's going to be.
Pollard, he looks like he's the guy, and Spears looks like he's not that great.
Benefited from Pollard in one of my leagues. I think he's the guy, right? They talked about this as he was leaving Dallas last year, and he didn't feel like he was himself after that knee injury until much later in the year. And he got to have a restart.
And that's when he took off.
And that's when he took off, right? He's now in a situation where they can see if he's going to be that guy. And I think that this is the opposite situation. Pollard is probably going to get the ball in his hands, have the opportunity to fail before they start splitting a little bit more. So I think Pollard's going to be your man.
I agree. Which B. Robinson is better?
This is how I had at one point this offseason both of them on my team. This week, if all points were colors of how the rest of the year was going to go, I think Brian scored Bijan by a point.
Yeah, and in all seriousness, I think Brian's just a little bit better than he's more of a guy than we maybe thought he was.
Yeah, I think we anticipated there to be more of a passing game opportunity for Eckler, and I think that we assumed more of a split there. Yeah, and Robinson's going to be the guy there for sure, but Bijan's also the guy. Looks really great. Bijan's going to be the greater option and better season long and in Dynasty, but hey, more power to you if you got Brian Robinson in a trade from me and give up your first overall pick. So your first round pick. So he wins for you.
Now, Javonte Williams, is he just done? Is he droppable? Is it over? I think so.
Yeah. I mean,
if anybody, what would you take in Dynasty? If someone offered you a 3rd or a 4th, would you take it?
For sure.
Yeah. Even a 4th.
Like easy. I mean, how much longer are you going to wait? I mean, you could say it's the first game, but
I would say, I mean, you've waited a couple of years, but I've also waited a couple of years and then just listened to too many people and traded away. I'm hoping a dirty liar. And the last person we'll talk about before we end the episode, which is Jameson Williams. He was outstanding. It was. So here's my thing with, I don't know yet what's the truth, because St. Brown is not going to be second fiddle to him.
I hope not. Yeah.
He can't. It's like, so here's the thing. There's so many Gibbs, Montgomery, Laporta, St. Brown. My whole thing was that not that he's not talented, but what are the odds that he is consistent with that many other mouths to feed? And I just don't think it's high, unless he is good enough to then become one of the top 2 or 3. And I didn't see that happening. Did see after that game of how much they used him, how good he was and electric with those touches, that he could maybe eat into Laporta a little bit more. He could eat into some of Gibbs' passing work. He could earn a little bit more of a consistent share, but I still think there's just too many mouths to add him to it. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
So I said this in the offseason. I thought that this could be the year where Williams shows us who he really is, right? Because we haven't gotten the opportunity to see it. It's like it's his sophomore year all over again. So I think they're intentional. In the offseason, Detroit talked about him being
they were very clear that he was the guy.
Yeah, they were very clear that what he can do, not necessarily like the guy on our team, but what he is capable of doing.
Yeah.
And I think that there was a little bit of like, let's show that off. Let's show off that we have the speedster, we have the guy that's going to take it off the top. Something they rely on Raw for. Obviously, they've got Laporta there, do Laporta things. Fortunately, yesterday, Amon-Ra and Laporta weren't Amon-Ra and Laporta. So
yeah,
we got to see JMO go off, and that worked for them in that game. So will it be every game? Probably not. But now we know they have it. And yeah, it sucks a little bit for the other pass catchers knowing that, some of their offensive series are going to end with a 60-yard touchdown to JMO and not so many possession receptions for our other guys. But
yeah. And that's what I expected more, this boom, like 60.
Yeah.
But he had a lot of short ones too that he just kind of broke off with it. But he had 9 total targets, 121 yards on 5 receptions. So they were, in general, they were like a higher average. But he also got some of these like manufactured touches where they were making a point. I think you're right. We'll see what the rest of it.
They even gave him a rushing attempt. They went for 13 yards. So they were giving him opportunities and getting the ball in his hands. He was having a night, so they were rolling with it, I think.
Oh, man, we should say one more thing before we end this. We got to make it quick, but likely. Is this likely Andrews?
So we were waiting for this all year last year, right? Still have Andrews, and I think Andrews is still going to have the games, but are we in a place where we're going to say likely might be a more consistent play?
We're in a place where I think that we can have the discussion of who's more valuable in Dynasty.
Yeah.
But in redraft, I'd still rather have Andrews.
Is it questionable in Dynasty who's more valuable?
Depends on and if I was contending right now, I would probably say Andrews, because I still think most weeks he'll be more consistent. But he's more of like an extra, like a third wide receiver for the team. And in your tight end spot, that can really work.
Yeah.
They shut down Andrews. Andrews also he had a few weeks off after getting in a car accident where he's banged up. So I don't think he was at 100%.
That's good call.
He did have an injury that he came back for just one playoff game at the end of the year. He got to rehab an accident, then into this game. And this is the same game that he played, the same team he played last time he played, and they shut him down purposely. So I think there's definitely an overreaction, and I would buy Andrews in a heartbeat and have no concerns about it whatsoever. Yeah. But I don't think that these are this guy or that guy. I think both of them can succeed. If you think of likely as another wide receiver instead of another tight end, then I can see both of them working out and both of them being valuable for fantasy. I think Andrews is just fine.
Likely was literally one toe from being the leading scorer of all fantasy players.
Did you see what Mahomes said after the game?
I didn't see that. No.
He said, "Next time, wear white cleats."
That's so... Yeah.
Yeah, it was such a shame. I don't want Baltimore to win, and being a Browns fan, but I do like Likely a lot.
Yeah.
And I was rooting for him on that touchdown. It's such a shame that he didn't get it. What a beautiful catch.
Yeah, it was a phenomenal catch. And it's funny you say that because Travis Kelce in the Kelce podcast talks about, one of the Kelce's brothers is, I'm escaping what is the center?
Oh, Jason and Travis.
Oh my gosh, Jason Kelce talks about wearing gloves that are the same color as your opponent's jersey so you don't get called for holding. It's so funny that you bring up the white cleat thing, but like, yeah, well,
it was so funny on that one. He was like, him as the center had no idea, and Travis was like, "Are you kidding?" I think it was Edelman was on the show too. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna do a bonus quick episode coming up, but the next one will be about just a quick hit on some rookies and see how we're feeling about them as we finally imagine for how many months how they're gonna do, and then we get to finally see them. But it's almost always not what you want as a rookie because we forget that they're rookies. So we'll break that down a little bit coming up next. But thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed, please do. We're on our journey to 100. It's a modest journey. It's a modest goal, but we appreciate everybody who can jump in and contribute to that, and then also jumping in the comments too, because we just like having that conversation. Tell us how your week went. Fun fact, I'm in 7 leagues, and let's see if I officially won any of them. I had a horrible week and won just 1. So I did get 1 out of 7. So obviously you should be listening to our fantasy advice.
If you want to, I went 3-3 this weekend in my 6 leagues, so I guess I'm faring a little bit better. But if you want to be sub 500, come listen to
me. All right, I'll see you next time. See you, Nate.
See you. I'll go grab my